In every life, there comes a season when the heart begins to whisper for something it cannot quite name. Olivia had long felt this restlessness, as though her days were filled with endless noise, yet empty of meaning. She lived among possessions that glittered with promise, but offered little comfort once they were hers. The pace of her life quickened with each year, and though she smiled politely, inwardly she found herself asking a quiet question: is this all there is? Her friends admired her apartment, filled with fashionable things and colors that mirrored the latest trends. They praised her for always keeping up, always knowing what to buy, always seeming to have more. Yet when the laughter faded and the evenings grew quiet, Olivia felt the weight of those very things pressing down upon her. She would gaze at shelves lined with objects she hardly touched, and her heart would ache with a loneliness she could not explain. She began to understand that what she sought could not be bought, wrapped in paper, or displayed to impress. She was searching for something invisible, something that could only be felt. The noise of life had disguised itself as progress, yet it left her weary. Every morning she woke with the same longing, as though the world expected her to run a race she had never agreed to enter. The invitations, the chatter, the endless stream of distractions, all of it kept her from the quiet she so deeply desired. Olivia wanted stillness. She wanted to hear her own thoughts without interruption. She wanted her heart to breathe freely, and though she could not put it into words at first, she was truly searching for clarity, clarity of mind, clarity of purpose, and perhaps clarity in love. One evening, as the city lights flickered outside her window, she realized that the life she had built did not resemble the life she truly wanted. It was filled with appearances, yet empty of authenticity. She thought of moments from her childhood when happiness came from the simplest of pleasures: the scent of freshly baked bread, the joy of running barefoot through grass, the laughter shared without a camera to capture it. Those memories, untouched by excess, reminded her of a truth she had nearly forgotten. Love, peace, and meaning did not live in clutter, they lived in simplicity. Her heart, so weary from chasing what never satisfied, began to soften with this discovery. She no longer wished to surround herself with what sparkled only on the surface. Instead, she longed for depth, for conversations that mattered, for relationships that were honest, for a life that reflected her true self. She realized that clarity was not only about clearing her apartment of unnecessary things, but also about clearing her soul of unnecessary burdens. To live without pretense, to love without fear, and to give herself permission to start anew. That was the clarity her heart was calling for. There were moments when she feared she was alone in this search, that others would not understand her choice to step away from what they considered success. Yet her heart reminded her that true courage lies not in following the crowd, but in listening to one's own quiet truth. She felt that somewhere, beyond the noise, beyond the expectations, someone else might also be searching, someone whose heart longed for simplicity as hers did. This thought comforted her. For the first time, she felt a sense of direction, as if the universe itself were gently guiding her toward a path more honest, more tender, and more true. With each small decision, to let go of what no longer served her, to slow down, to breathe, she moved closer to the clarity she craved. And though she could not see the future, her heart assured her that it was not only peace she would find there, but love as well. In that quiet moment, Olivia understood that her journey had already begun. There comes a moment when the weight we carry, though unseen by others, becomes too heavy for the heart to bear. Olivia felt this truth in every corner of her life. Her home was filled with objects she no longer needed, souvenirs from moments she barely remembered, gifts she had kept out of obligation, clothes she no longer wore but could not bring herself to give away. Each piece seemed harmless on its own, yet together they formed a burden that pressed against her spirit. It was as though her past had gathered in the corners of her home, whispering stories she no longer wished to hear. At first she told herself it was only clutter, that perhaps a little organization would solve the problem. She folded, she stored, she rearranged. But the more she tried to tame the excess, the more she realized it was not only her shelves that were overcrowded, but her soul as well. There were memories she clung to even when they brought her pain, disappointments she replayed though they had long passed, and unspoken regrets that weighed on her with every quiet evening. These were not things she could place in a box or sweep into a drawer, yet they were baggage all the same. Olivia began to understand that holding on did not preserve her, but rather imprisoned her. Each unnecessary possession, each painful memory, was a link in a chain that kept her from moving forward. She longed for freedom, for the lightness that comes when one chooses to let go. And so, with both courage and tenderness, she began the gentle work of releasing. The process was not quick, nor was it easy. As she picked up each item in her home, she asked herself whether it truly served her, whether it still brought joy, or whether it only reminded her of what she had lost. There were moments when tears slipped quietly down her cheeks as she placed an old letter in a box, or folded away a dress she once wore to a night that felt so important, yet no longer defined her. She honored those memories, but she chose not to let them bind her anymore. With every object she released, she felt a small piece of her spirit lift, and with her home slowly clearing, she turned inward toward the deeper work. She confronted the disappointments she had carried for too long, the friendships that had faded, the promises that were broken, the love that had slipped away before it truly began. She realized she had been holding on to these wounds as if they proved her worth, when in truth they only held her back from the love she still deserved to find. Releasing them did not mean she denied their importance. It meant she accepted their place in her story and allowed herself to move beyond them. Olivia's heart grew lighter with every step. She found she could breathe more deeply in rooms once crowded with things, and she could laugh more freely in moments once shadowed by regret. She began to discover that life's greatest treasures are not stored on shelves or hidden in boxes, but are lived each day in kindness, connection, and love. By letting go, she made space not only in her home, but also in her heart, space for something new to enter, something more genuine and lasting. Her friends noticed the change, though they could not always name it. They said she seemed calmer, more radiant, as though a soft light followed her wherever she went. What they did not see was the quiet strength it took to lay down the baggage she had carried for so long. What they did not feel was the deep relief of standing in a room that reflected her truest self, uncluttered and at peace. And though she had not yet met the one who would walk beside her, Olivia's heart was ready now. She had made room for love, not the fleeting kind that dazzles and fades, but the steady love that grows when two souls meet without pretense, without walls, without the weight of yesterday holding them back. It was in letting go that Olivia finally learned how to hold on. There is a certain sweetness in discovering that life does not need to be grand to be beautiful. Olivia, having already lightened her burdens, found herself noticing things she once overlooked. A quiet morning with sunlight spilling softly across her window became more precious than the dazzling parties she once attended. The simple act of brewing tea and listening to the gentle hum of the kettle brought her a calm joy, far deeper than the temporary thrill of acquiring something new. It was as if her senses had awakened, reminding her that happiness had been waiting all along in the very places she had never thought to look. She began to spend her evenings differently. Instead of rushing from one obligation to the next, she allowed herself the gift of slowness. She would sit by her window with a book or step outside just to breathe the evening air. The sound of leaves rustling in the breeze felt like a melody written only for her. She had spent so many years chasing after noise that she had forgotten the peace of silence. Now that silence was not empty, it was full, alive, and tender. Olivia also found herself falling in love with the beauty of ordinary moments. A smile from a stranger on her morning walk warmed her heart more than any compliment about her clothes ever had. The scent of rain on the pavement after a summer storm gave her a joy she could not quite explain. The laughter she shared with a friend over something simple filled her with a sense of belonging she had once thought she needed possessions to achieve. These were not grand gestures, not carefully staged displays of happiness, but pure and unfiltered moments that spoke directly to her soul. It was in these small things that Olivia began to understand the true essence of life. The quiet simplicity of a meal prepared with care, the comfort of a home no longer crowded with things but open and free, the lightness in her heart when she no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. She realized that she had been searching for beauty in the wrong places. Beauty was not found in how much she had, but in how deeply she could feel. Her heart softened even more as she embraced this simplicity. There was no longer a need for constant performance, no hunger for endless validation. She discovered peace in living honestly, in showing up just as she was. And it was in this peace that she felt something unexpected stirring within her, a readiness to love, a love that would not be bound by appearances, but nourished by shared moments of stillness, kindness, and truth. She had cleared space not only in her home and her heart, but in her very way of living, and into that space flowed the gentle promise of connection. There were evenings when she lit a single candle and allowed its glow to soften the room. She would sit quietly, listening to the steady rhythm of her own breath, and feel gratitude rise within her. These moments, once too small to notice, now felt like treasures. She was falling in love, not with someone just yet, but with life itself, and she understood that only when one learns to love life in its simplest form can one truly open to the love of another. Her friends, still caught in the rush of endless striving, sometimes questioned her choices. They could not see how giving up so much could lead to greater fulfillment, but Olivia knew her heart did not need to be cluttered with noise or weighed down by expectation. She had discovered something rarer than admiration or applause. She had found peace, and in that peace she found the strength to wait for love that would honor the quiet and cherish the simple. For Olivia, simplicity was not emptiness, but abundance, not less but more. It was the gentle reminder that love, when it comes, need not be loud or extravagant to be true. It can bloom in small gestures, flourish in ordinary days, and thrive in the quiet moments where two hearts meet without needing anything more. It was in falling in love with simplicity that Olivia learned how to love at all. There are times when life, in all its quietness, offers something wholly unexpected, something that startles the heart and awakens it in ways it did not know were possible. For Olivia, who had only just begun to understand the beauty of simplicity, it came as a gentle spark, unplanned, unlooked for, yet undeniable. She met him on an afternoon that carried no promise of significance. She had gone about her day as she usually did, with ease and lightness, when fate seemed to place someone in her path who mirrored the very values she had come to treasure. He was not dazzling in the way the world often admires, nor did he strive to impress her with grand gestures or polished words. Instead, there was a quiet steadiness about him, a kind of warmth that felt safe, familiar, and true. They spoke as if they had known each other longer than the brief moments they shared. His honesty was immediate, and his kindness needed no explanation. It simply lived in the way he listened, the way his eyes softened when she spoke, the way he never hurried her thoughts. It was in these small things that Olivia recognized something rare, something she had been waiting for without even knowing it. At first, she tried to dismiss the feeling. After all, had she not promised herself to embrace life as it was, without rushing, without chasing? Yet the spark lingered. It followed her into the quiet evenings, where she found herself smiling at memories of their conversations. She felt a warmth in her chest, not the restless ache of longing she had known before, but a steady glow, as if her heart knew it had found a companion on the path she had chosen. What surprised her most was how naturally he fit into the life she was now building. He did not question her choice to step away from excess. He admired it. He did not see her need for quiet as strange, but shared it. Their time together was never about where they went or what they did. It was about the ease of simply being. A walk in the park, a shared meal, a conversation that stretched into the evening without effort. These moments carried more meaning than the grandest of occasions. Olivia realized she was no longer searching for love in glittering places, for it had quietly found her in the spaces where truth and simplicity lived. There were moments when she caught herself marveling at how different this felt from the stories she had told herself in the past. Love, she once thought, needed to be dramatic, full of intensity and struggle, but this was different. It was tender and calm, steady and reassuring. It did not demand that she change or hide any part of herself. Instead, it made her feel more herself than she had in years. The spark was not a fire that burned wildly, but a steady flame that promised warmth and light, not just for a moment, but for the days to come. Olivia noticed how her heart no longer carried the same weight it once did. The baggage she had let go of no longer haunted her steps, and the quiet she had learned to love no longer felt lonely. In his presence, simplicity was not just her journey, but theirs. Their laughter was not loud but genuine, their silences not awkward but filled with comfort. Together, they discovered that love did not need extravagance to feel extraordinary. Her friends, curious about this new chapter, often asked what made him different. Olivia found it difficult to explain, for it was not in what he did but in who he was. He valued honesty, and she could trust his words without question. He valued kindness, and she saw it in the smallest gestures that spoke louder than any promise. He valued simplicity, and in that he met her where her heart already was. It was not about two people creating a perfect life, but about two souls walking side by side, both seeking truth, both treasuring the same light. And so, what began as a quiet meeting became something far greater than either of them could have planned. The spark that had caught Olivia by surprise grew into something steady, something that illuminated her path with hope and tender certainty. It was in this unexpected spark that Olivia realized she had found the beginning of love. When two people find themselves moving in the same direction, not because the world has pushed them there, but because their hearts beat to the same quiet rhythm, something remarkable begins to unfold. Olivia had discovered her own strength in choosing simplicity, and when she met him, she saw that his heart longed for the same freedom. It was not about dramatic declarations or sweeping gestures, it was about a shared way of seeing life. Together, they began to walk a path stripped of excess, yet rich with meaning. Their days were no longer defined by noise or by the endless rush that had once exhausted her spirit. Instead, they built their lives upon essentials, time spent in each other's presence, conversations that went beyond the surface, and laughter that rose from the smallest, most ordinary moments. Olivia noticed how love, in this quiet form, did not clamor for attention. It did not demand to be proven with possessions or displayed for others to admire. It grew gently, like a seed that needs no audience, only care and consistency. They found joy in simple routines. A walk at dusk, hand in hand, became an adventure. A meal shared at a table cleared of distractions became a feast. A day without plans offered them more delight than any elaborate outing could provide. In these moments, they saw clearly that the strength of love lies not in how much is added, but in how much is unnecessary and can be taken away. What remained was pure, unshaken, and deeply satisfying. There were challenges, of course, as every path holds them, yet they faced each one with the same belief that honesty and kindness were greater than pride, and that patience was more valuable than being right. They did not cling to perfection, but to truth, and when disagreements arose, they were met not with fear, but with the certainty that love was not fragile but resilient. For when life is lived with fewer distractions, the heart learns to hold fast to what matters most. Olivia sometimes thought of how different this journey felt from the one she had once imagined. She had believed love would be found in dazzling gestures, that it must always be extraordinary to endure. But here, in the presence of someone who shared her values, she learned that love's greatest strength is often its simplicity. The quieter it became, the stronger it grew. She did not need to question whether it was real, for it lived in every small act. The way he reached for her hand, the way he remembered her unspoken thoughts, the way he made space for her heart, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. Together, they created a life where less truly became more. The absence of clutter gave way to clarity, and the absence of pretense gave way to trust. They no longer measured their days by what they had achieved or acquired, but by how deeply they had loved. And in this simplicity, they found themselves closer not only to each other, but to the very essence of what it means to live. It was not a journey of glamour, nor a story filled with spectacle, yet it was more enduring than either of them had known love could be. Each step they took together confirmed what their hearts already knew, that when two souls walk the same path, stripped of all that does not matter, what remains is love in its truest form. It was in this shared simplicity that Olivia and the one she loved discovered that love, when grounded in essentials, is not only enough but everything. Thank you for joining Olivia's heartfelt journey where clarity, letting go, simplicity, and love guided her steps. If you felt the spark in her story, imagine what more we can explore together. Your support helps us keep sharing these touching English stories with you. So don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more beautiful journeys. Until next time, keep life simple and keep love at the center.